Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. So my name's Alex. I'm thrilled, really happy to welcome you to this webinar. We'll be going into Bluebeam Studio sessions and projects in particular, and exploring how it can sort of help your project delivery process. So throughout, we'll be talking about sessions and projects, demonstrating how they can help you manage and share project documents and leverage the collaboration features to help reduce those errors and boost your productivity. One of the main advantages of sessions and studios is the ability to collaborate in real time and bring together internal and external stakeholders in a centralized platform. So it helps eliminate that disjointed communication channels that, with everyone involved. I remember back in the day as a building designer, this is the sort of thing that happens all the time, but sending documents back and forth over email, and they get out of date and people are referencing the wrong materials, and it's just a bit of confusing. So Bluebeam sort of tries to solve that problem. Furthermore, the security is also really important today. So this sessions and projects does have robust security features to protect any sensitive project data. So I encourage you to actively participate. There will be time for questions at the end. So if you're anything like me, you'll think of a million and forget them all. So maybe, if you see something really important you want to touch on, write it down so you remember it for when we get to that questions bit at the end. Just a little bit about us. Binxero, we cater to the needs of AEC specifically, with a range of services spanning consulting, content creation, software training, and technical support. And we sort of pride ourselves on the fact that the people that work at Binxero have got a lot of industry experience. So if you're asking a question of us or you need something from us, the chances are one of us has sort of been there and done that. And about me, so yeah, I'm Alex. I've got a design architecture background with a bit of a minor in mechanical engineering and a bit of an interest there just on the side. I've been using Bluebeam for a year and a bit and Revit since 2018. So that's more of my bread and butter, but nowadays I'm a dedicated Bluebeam tech here. 4 years, pretty small compared to some other people at the company, but some experience nonetheless in an architecture firm designing and now as a technical consultant. But yeah, no one cares about me. Let's get into the content of the session. So for our agenda, I'll start with giving you a little bit of a breakdown on sessions versus projects, what they are and what the differences are and what each of them can do for you. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty. So being sessions, how they work, best practice, and your time-saving sort of workflows. There's a couple of examples at the end that show you how it can be used. And then with projects, we'll do the same thing, how they work, and then 3 sort of primary ways to sort of utilize it. So here, this is a pretty decent slide. Ben's a big fan of this one. It sort of shows you exactly what the difference is. So for your context, Sessions is actually the live collaboration tool. So Studio Sessions is a place where you can effectively utilize Bluebeam, but with all your mates. It's live, so multiple people working on the same PDF at the same time. You've got a limit of 500 people, 5,000 files, and it's only PDF because it's Bluebeam specific. We'll give you an example. So you'll make more sense when you actually see the program, but a bit of background. Whereas projects, conversely, it's more of a data management system. It's not as live. So it's got unlimited storage, which is pretty great, and unlimited file size, all that. And it supports any file. It's file agnostic. So projects is more like the Google Drive or the Dropbox or whatever of Bluebeam specifically, and it exists in Bluebeam, where you can upload any files and store them in the same place and then share them with other people. And Sessions is more like Bluebeam with friends, I guess. So yeah, anyway, I think we'll start now with actually getting into the program and start by demoing Sessions and what they do. So a bit of a breakdown. It's document markup and review. You can approve markups and reply to them, set statuses, follow a user, alert a user to a markup, and then the markups list data can show you who placed the markup and when they placed it for every single individual item. let's swing over to Bluebeam. Where you find studio stuff over here, the studio tab. Then you'll go over to the top. You've got projects on the left, the little chalkboard, and sessions, the whiteboard. I don't know, maybe they're a bit similar. Sessions is this one on the right. We'll start here. The plus arrow over here is how you add a new session. You can see I've got all the sessions that I've joined in the past, and under not joined is ones that I've been invited to but haven't joined, which is none of. Start here. We'll start by making one, start a new session, give it a name. We'll just call it webinar. Click enter, bang, easy as that. The first thing you're prompted to do is invite people to this session. So you can do that 3 ways, either literally just typing and pasting them in, or adding emails from groups. And if you've made groups in Bluebeam in the past, you'll have these available. Or an address book, which is literally tied in with Microsoft and all that. For now, we won't invite anyone. We'll just go through the system. At the top, you've got this little Australian flag. So that actually shows you what server you're on. A really good feature is that they do have Australian servers. So everything's stored locally in Australia. So that meets any of your defense or government requirements for your data security. You've also got session settings, a little sneaky at the top here. This will tell you a lot of important information. The main one being manage notifications. This is really important if you don't want to get bombarded with emails. So if you click on that, it'll bring this little menu up. As you can see at the moment, it's got notifications enabled, but you got to make sure, for me personally, these ones are off if you don't want to see this stuff, because you'll get an email every single day with markup alerts if you have that ticked on. So if you're getting that and you don't want it, that's where you find it. If we go back to session settings, under attendees, this is where you can invite people, or you can untick restrict attendees. What this does is it means you can share the ID, so the webinar ID at the top. You can share that ID, and anyone that has that ID can join if this is turned off. Alternatively, you have to go over here and click add to either type in individual email addresses or add an entire group like we made before. To the right, we have permissions. So for the session, you can change what people are allowed to do. At the moment, all attendees fall under this one, and these are all the things that they're allowed to do, and the 2 things that below they're not allowed. What this is useful for is you can add either a group or like an individual. For now, we'll say all the Bluebeam techs, I want to add them to the session. I can then change what they're allowed to and not allowed to do. So if I want to be able to save, yep, to print, but I don't want them to mark up for whatever reason, I can turn that one off, and then I can control granularly who can do what. How you make these groups is this button over here, the little family of dudes with the cogwheel. The plus symbol is to make a new group. You can name it whatever you want. It's webinar for now. And then you add people to this group here, typing in individual email addresses. And as you can see, Bluebeam remembers these groups anywhere, so you only have to make a group once. So if you've created your group, you've added your email addresses to it, you can click OK, add it through this plus symbol, and then change the permissions for that group. So that's really good for if you have a session, you invite people to it, and they are from a different company, or you've got external stakeholders coming in and working with you, you can change what they're allowed to do and what you're allowed to do. So you'll say, I want you guys to be able to mark up, but I don't want you to save and steal my documents or whatever. Just gives you that fine bit of control over who can do what. So now I'll actually go back to a session that we've made a bit earlier, just so it has a bit more meat to it instead of showing you as a project. Leave this one. So I just made this session. You can see I can't see my other sessions while I'm in here. I have to go up to the top right and click leave. Then I can see all these again, and I'll go to this one. This is an example that actually has something written in it. You can see it myself. I think if we got in here, we got myself, colleague, which we'll see in a second, and Ben. The colleague's actually just me on another computer, so you can sort of see how they work together. But it's just these 3 people in here right now, and you can see who's sort of placed what. If I go to the beginning, I've placed this markup. If I want to see who's done what, so I'll zoom into this one, who's like, what's going on here. If you click on it, it automatically gets highlighted in your markups list, and then you can see all the information about it. So this markup has the author as Ben, so this one isn't mine, and the date is the 16th of the 3rd, 2023. You can see Ben's actually come online, so there he is. He's in the webinar now. G'day. With this markup, I'm actually unable to edit it because this is his. This doesn't belong to me. I can't change, his words around or change what he said or delete it because it's not mine. So that's the good thing about sessions, is that there's multiple people in here doing work or whatever, but I can't delete other people's work. I can't change what they've said. And the same goes for you. You can't, I can't write something and then have someone come along and reword it to get me in trouble. It's all document security. It's all protected. So a cool feature as well, since Ben's online, if I click on him, I can right click and click follow. Now, whatever he does, you can see his cursor here in yellow. Whatever he does, I'll actually be able to see and follow him around. So you can see him, you can see what he's doing. He's following around. He's in the session the same time as me, zooming in and out, whatever. That's a pretty cool sort of feature. You can sort of see exactly what people are up to. Another good one is at the same place up here with Ben. I can right click on Ben, his name, and click filter markups. And what that'll do is actually gray everything that Ben hasn't done and leave his visible. So I've now filtered out these two, which have been placed by someone else. And that helps me track, who is doing what in my project. So I can fling through the document and be like, oh, okay, he hasn't done any of this stuff over here. Oh, here's what Ben's done. You can check that specifically. So over here as well, we've got the little record section. And now that Ben's in here doing stuff, you can see live each thing that he places is tracked. So just then I saw that he's placed a markup. If I want to see that one and see, oh, what's he doing? I can click to it and it'll take me straight there. That's pretty cool for tracking the entire history. If I load more items, I can go to the very top and see the very first thing that ever happened is I joined the session and I added the document and then whatever else. Go back to the beginning, I can see all the fresh stuff that happens exactly as it's occurring. So what else do we have? Another little tool we have at the top is the My Status thing here. So what this does, I'm able to select this one and change my status to waiting, reviewing, or finished, or I can customize and write my own. This is a handy little thing because I can have everyone set to reviewing. I know exactly who's up to what. If everyone in the office has their status set to finished, then you'll be able to see that everyone's done and you can move on. So you don't need to wait for people to email you and say, yeah, I've finished my work on this or whatever. Everyone sort of just sets their status and it'll automatically update. Now, under notifications, so what we have is the alert system I was telling you about earlier. If I want to bring someone's attention to a particular markup, if I stop filtering, I can go over here to something that I did. Say maybe I want this to be fixed. So I need the installation specified, and that's Ben's job. I can right click on that markup and go down here to alert attendee. So right click, alert attendee, and then choose, we'll click Ben, click OK. And what that'll do under record is a little bell and it's alerted Ben to a call out. He'll get a notification similar to the one that I have here. If I click on that, it takes me directly to what Ben's alerted me to. So that's pretty handy for getting people's attention in the right place. If you've got a massive document that's hundreds of pages long and you want to bring someone's attention to a particular point, as you can see right here, Ben's just alerted me. So what's he want to show me? If I click on that, it takes me to his new note he's just written. There's a defect on the adjoining property, maybe a sign of significant reactive clay foundations. Thank you, perfect. And he's also left an image just on the side for context. That's pretty cool. There's a few other ways you can attach images and stuff, but you can leave it right on there. It provides a bit of context. And that way I know exactly what's going on. I don't have to email them back and forth about it. It's all right there in the same place. So that's the gist of it. What I'll do now actually is I'll show you a little bit of some best practice stuff in reference to sessions. So these 5 things here, these are my 5 sort of tips for making your session. Before you upload your document to a session, you should prep your document with these things to save you any time and effort later. So in order to maintain its data integrity, Bluebeam locks a few things after it enters a session. So scaling drawings, creating page labels, hyperlinking, or batch hyperlinks, particularly custom columns and statuses, and creating layers. All of those things are restricted, or you can't do them when you actually make a session. So you can see in this example, one good thing that's been done is a layer has been added for estimator. So this is pretty cluttery at the moment. It actually helps sometimes to turn certain information off so you can make more sense of the drawing. So all this blue stuff where the estimator has gone through and done a material, costing, and pricing, it covers a lot of the floor. If I click this button here under layers, this little visibility, turn the eyeball off, it gets rid of some of that clutter, it gets rid of the estimating because that's not relevant right now. As you can see though, the add new layer button is gray. So I couldn't have created that layer and added anything to it while I'm in the session. I needed to have created the layer earlier. What I can do is if I make a new markup, just a cloud, if I right click on that, go to layer, you can see I can add that to the estimation layer, but I just can't make new layers. So it's a good idea to make a few layers in advance for what you anticipate you're going to be using. Additionally, under measurements, you can see this document is in session, has an embedded scale. So if I try and draw something, it will be accurate to the scale. Whereas if I didn't add the scale before I uploaded the file to the session, everyone would have to create their own sort of scale and it could create errors, right? So it's important to add that beforehand. As well as a few other things. We'll get into statuses in a sec when I go through my example. But as you can see, under columns in markups list, I've got cost and material and measurement columns for the takeoff part. And those columns couldn't exist unless I added them before the document. So under markups list, under columns, manage columns, see there's usually a tab here called custom columns, but it's not there while you're in sessions. So I can't do that while I'm in here. It's got to be done earlier. What I'll do now actually is get into a little bit of an example. It provides a bit of context and hopefully makes a bit more sense while I demonstrate the next part. Just for workflow. So there's a quick little example of a procedure between a designer, an electrician, and a drafter. In here, if I go to this page, what you can see is there's really just a really simple example. It's probably not 100% accurate, but just for the sake of demonstration, I've got a little electrical drawing showing some ceiling lights and some general outlets that we can say the electrician's gone through and drawn and done their quote off. But what happens, we've got 2 people that are interested in this information. We've got the building drafter, so the person that's going to be adding this information to the Revit model wants to know what's going on, and then the actual project manager who says, hey, that's actually not right, we need to make a change. So what we can do is we can provide, we can do this really well with statuses. Statuses are basically a way to add a bit of extra data to our markups. So if I zoom into this little one here and right click it, you can then go down here to set status, and you can set it to accepted, rejected, canceled, completed, or other ones. You can actually manage statuses if it's not in a session. So it's important to make your statuses before you upload your file to a session. But nonetheless, these are the ones that you can change. Why this is useful. So say I'm the drafter and I want to know what's ready to go and put in the model, what's been 100% confirmed. I can go to filter, status, and click accepted. I'm filtering by Ben as well, clear that one. So all of these ones that are in blue have been accepted. So I know what I can actually add to the model now. I can go, yep, add this, add this, add this, add this, add this, and add all the ones that are still blue. And when I'm done, I'll add all of them or highlight the ones that all these that I've added them to the model now. So I can right click and set the status to completed. Now they're all missed a couple, but now they've all been grayed out because they're no longer accepted, they're completed. Set status, complete. Go down here and do the same ones with these, all these ones. Yep. Now, these ones are gray as well. So like the reason they're gray is because they're a different status. If I'm the electrician and I want to see, okay, what have I've been drawn, my attention's been drawn to this drawing for some reason, I can filter by rejected and see that all of these, the ones that are now blue are rejected and something's sort of gone wrong. So that's why, another way you can use the sort of same statuses is if you're on a very huge document and you don't know where you're supposed to be looking, you can filter by the status. So you can go through and see, okay, everything that's been completed is all through here. These are all completed. And then these ones are all accepted and ready to go. You can click on each one to find where they are. If I'm the electrician, I go up here, I'm interested in what's been rejected. I go, okay, I can click on this and it'll take me in the drawing to where they've been rejected and it'll highlight them. You can see I've attached this little symbol. So I can click on that and there's a little thing here saying, oh, there's supposed to be chandeliers in this living space, whatever. It provides a bit more information without taking up room in the drawing. Now I can go through and, delete the ones that are rejected and draw it in properly, however it's meant to be. And then once that's all done, the drafter goes through, clicks everything, everything's been done, everything's been completed. And now when you go through your filters list and you go through rejected stuff, you can go through the whole document really quick and just look for colors. And go, yep, nothing else is wrong. We're ready to go to the next stage. So that's a little bit about statuses and how they work. But yeah, that's kind of our overview of sessions. Bang. Sorry, there we go. Just a little bit of an example workflow. So hopefully you were able to follow that. It sort of just shows one of the ways that it could be used. That's just an example I created. Those statuses are really useful because you can create any that you want. I could make one that says reviewing or waiting for a particular person. And then when everyone's got the same status, you sort of know what's going to happen with the project. Anyway, that's enough sort of about sessions. We're going to go into projects now, which is similar, but as I said before, it's a bit different. It's more data management. Let's get back into Bluebeam. If I go to the same tab here, Studio, and then over here to projects, I've got two that I've made before and not joined. See, this is one I've been invited to, but I haven't joined yet. Same thing as before, it's all on the same server. If I create a session, it's the same button, add, new project, call it webinar. Now we've got what is basically a glorified file browser, right? It's very similar to File Explorer. See, I've got the tab on the left here, similar to this tab, and tab on the right with all the documents. Same sort of system applies. Up here, we've got project settings. This is a lot of the similar project settings to before in sessions. You've got folder permissions, user access in general. Under general notifications, there's another one, same thing as before. You can enable or disable notifications to see whether you want emails embedded or not. Under user access, you can restrict users the same as before. You can see that projects have an ID, the same way that sessions have an ID. So they've got, if I leave this session, every session has a 9-digit ID. The same goes for projects. So under user access, it's the same thing. Remember the group we made earlier? We can add that same group to here and it'll invite all those people to the project. If I invite Bluebeam text, oops, there we go. I can invite all those people to the session. We'll go into a bit of an example here being 22 Sycamore Avenue, just because there's some actual files in here, something to look at. You can explore it, change the setting here under thumbnails or what's it called? Or list view. So it just changes how it's presented. You've got the big sort of images or the drop down. It's very similar again to like the same way your typical file explorer works, except this is all stored on the cloud. If I go into an example builder, click down to a file, RFI. So I've got a folder with a document stored in it. One of the cool things I can do is actually share a link. If I go here and right click on this, I can share a link to this file. And I've got a few settings that apply to it. I can change it to either 24 hours or the lifetime of the project. I can require a password or not, and I can flatten all the markups in the PDF if I want to. If I click OK, what it does is it creates a link to that particular PDF. I can copy that link. If I chuck that in Google, what we get is Bluebeam Studio file that's been shared with me, file name, shared by, and the download button. So that way you can actually just give this link out and easily share documents that are too big to share over email. It's a pretty cool little feature a lot of people miss. Importantly, if you don't want people to be able to share those links, under project settings and folder permissions, under permissions, there's the share file links tab here. So a typical attendee is denied the ability to do that. If I add a group that I trust, maybe like an internal group like this one, I can then say people in this group are allowed to share those links. And you can specify to the sort of specific who can do what. And that gives you more protection over what's happening with your files. Now back up to the top. One of the other cool things you can do under project settings and folder permissions is you can specifically show you who can see what. So if I want an external client to have access to some files, but not others, I'll add that group, or even, I'll add that group. And then this drop down arrow here, pretty tiny. I can show you each individual folder in this project. And then I've got different permissions applied to each. So the client can only read the client folder. And for the project internal folder, it's completely hidden. So what that looks like, I've got another window of Bluebeam open. So this is what the client sees. So they've only got the client folder there. Whereas for me, I've got both client and project internal that I can see. So that way you can invite people from outside of the organization to have access to some things that they need access to, and then not access to others. Another thing as it relates to sessions, you can create a session from any document in a project. So if I've got a set of plans, this is the same one, I can right click on that and actually add to a new session directly from the project. The benefit that this has is I can create the session, it puts me in there, uploads a document. And then if I make any changes, have multiple people in this session drawing stuff, when I finish the session, by leaving it, when I finish that session, it's in the project over here, Sycamore Avenue. So you can see that this document now says it's in, and I can join it from this project. And when it's done and it's all closed, it saves itself to that same folder. So why that's helpful, if I go to a different folder, so if a different project, Bluebeam Assets, this is the one that I sort of personally use. If I go to examples and then, where's my MEP example? If I right click on this one of the things you can do is actually look at the revision history of this particular document. So this shows me what's been happening and each time it's been checked in. So only 2 things have happened with this one. It was added and moved, whereas this one over here has had more work done to it. Under revision history, you can see a lot's happened. So I've actually left comments saying I've checked the file back in, spaces and counts of ducks, that's what I did. How that works, if I open this document right now, and I can choose to split it, I'll just say no. This is what I'm looking at, and anytime I can, like I can't add changes, right? So I can't actually do anything in this document right now because it's not checked out. That's why everyone's looking at the same thing right now. If you're someone else like Ben who's in this same project and you open up this PDF, you're looking at the same thing as me, unless I go up here and I check out the document. So that gives me the ability to actually edit it. Now I'm able to draw all over it, leave my remarks, leave my clouds. Just leave stuff everywhere. And now I'm able to actually edit it. So what checkouts, it's like a checkout system where if someone else comes along right now and looks at this document, you can see the little blue symbol. It says that it's checked out. So you know if someone is working on a document or not. That way, when I'm finished, you right click, you can save the document. When I close it, it'll prompt me with this. So I can type in a comment and say what I did. So I left a bunch of nonsense everywhere. And that was a major update. And then I want to check that file back in. Now you can see when I've checked it back in, it'll save it. Taking its precious time. And now that symbol's been removed, so it's no longer checked out. If I want to, if I right click and view revision history, I can see from 1.0 to 1.7, those are all minor updates. Because I clicked major update, it goes to 2.0. And it was checked back in, and the comment is I left a bunch of nonsense everywhere. If I don't want that nonsense everywhere, or I deleted something important, what I can do is actually restore a previous version. So 1.6, when it was checked back in, I want to actually either restore it or look at it first. So I can open this particular revision and see, okay, what happened on the 2nd of the 23rd, 2023. This is what the document looked like. While I'm here, I can open up a different version, open up the latest one, split the view. And now you can see them side by side. And you can see, so between these two revisions, this is what's happened. Okay, I don't like any of this nonsense on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to close them both, go back to my project, go over here, click right click, revision history. I'm going to restore this previous version because I want that one back. So that way you're protected from any sort of nonsense happening. You upload a project, you've got access to the latest one. So if that bunch of nonsense wasn't a bunch of nonsense, it's not deleted now, it's still there. But this 2.1 is just checked back in and it's restored. So all that stuff's gone that I did a second ago. Pretty cool. This provides you a bit of granular control. It protects you from stuff being deleted, protects you from people overriding other stuff, and makes sure you have access to the entire history. What else do we have in our projects? I might do the next part where I'm going to go over some of the common uses. So for client interaction and project archiving, one of the ways that I sort of think you could use projects really effectively is if you're, for example, a building designer, or you're someone that works with specific clients, and you want to store everything that you do with a particular project. So say 22 Sycamore Avenue is a project that I've finished. I want to share all my information with the client, but I want to keep all my own stuff somewhere that it's not taking up space on my hard drive. That's what this sort of system's good for, because the client has access to their client folders with all the external info, including their warranty documents, any variations in the client's version of the plan. They have access to all that, whereas I only have access to both, and I can see all my internal stuff that happened with this project, and it's all saved on the cloud, so it's not taking up my hard drive space. So that reason I think that's really helpful is because you can actually archive these little projects over here, and I can just leave this for years and years, and I know that that project, all the data referencing it, is still available to me. and it's in a format that I can provide to the client as well. Another example, that office-wide document management, tracking and sharing. As I was showing before with the syncing and with other stuff like that. I'll get into it now. Go into Bluebeam. We'll stay in this project. Good enough. One thing that you can do is sync your files. So if you're a type of person that has work off-site or somewhere where you have bad internet, you need access to plans, you can click on the little button up here that says set to sync. So I can choose to sync maybe just the builder documents and the plans. And under actions, I can click sync. And that means that if I go offline right now, as you can see, the little thing just popped up, all of these files are actually now downloaded, or they're included in the sync. So if I go offline, I'll still be able to open this one. And if I check out this document as well, people will know that I'm working on it. I can go onto the site, add all my stuff to the document, and then check it back in. Another thing, if you're working in a big office and someone else has checked out a document, so the same way we did, you can see the symbol at the top, it's in a session. I don't want it to be in a session. Someone's added it without good reason. I can revoke the checkout of that document, and it just gets rid of any status. It puts it back to its normal state that it was in before. If that person's working on that document, so if I open this and I check it out by clicking the little lock, and I've been doing very meaningful work on this document, and someone revokes the checkout, so right click. I can't revoke myself, right? But if it were to happen, it would just leave my version of the document open and say that my checkout has been revoked. So I would still have the opportunity to save all of my changes to a different location and keep them, but it would maintain the integrity of the original by revoking my access to it. So those are the main things, really. That's a really quick and sort of cut and dry version, giving you a bit of a demo of both studio sessions and projects. Yeah, there are probably a few questions. I know it was maybe a bit quick at some places, but it was really, the idea was to give you just a demo of what it's capable of, how it can be used.